of Korean Americans obviously is a group that champions causes for our community as Korean Americans, trying to create a platform so that we can be heard. How important do you think a group like CKA is?
Well, I've just been astonished at actually the rise of CKA and the genius of it in terms of trying to unite a very diverse community across all 50 states into a powerful voice that can channel the concerns of the community writ large. So I think it's incredibly important, and I think there's probably in my lifetime never been a more important moment for communities to engage in the civic process with clarity of voice and purpose and determination to ensure that in fact all voices are heard.
Right. So let me go back to your past and your upbringing. As a Korean American, we all go through this sort of question of identity. And sometimes it's a struggle, and then sometimes it takes a while for us to understand where our place is. So if you can just share with me what that process was like for you.
So in some ways I have had a very typical quote-unquote American childhood. I was born in Boulder, Colorado, and I was a Girl Scout and grew up in a middle-class community and went to public schools and fell in love with the outdoors because it was my backyard in Colorado. At the same time, it was really very clear that I was somewhat unusual. We were really, I think, for some time, the only Asian family in the entire community, and certainly the only Korean family in not only Boulder, but probably a big swath of Colorado back in 1968 when my parents first moved there. So it was always very clear to me that I was somewhat different. And it was also very clear to me because of the experience that we had living in Colorado that there were many who didn't think we belonged. So I think I had a very solid taste of both what it's like to kind of grow up as a young kid, classic American, and a very strong taste of what it's like to grow up as a person of color in this country. My parents, like many other immigrants before them and after them, wanted to come to America to seek better economic opportunities. They wanted to live in a country of stability. They wanted to experience the freedoms and liberties that the greatest democracy in the world afforded its citizens.
Well, you, as a Korean American woman, in a very high-profile position at the NRDC, that is something to certainly be proud of. As Korean Americans, we see that and it's like, wow, that's quite an achievement. What's that been like for you?
Well, I think that there is a reality that in many of the leading nonprofit institutions in our country, the leadership doesn't entirely reflect the demographics of our country itself. And so when there are women or when there are people of color, when there are people that look different than the normal historic paradigm, it's an important thing. That said, I have to say this has been an experience unlike almost any other experience that I've had. You know, I was in the Obama administration, I worked in the Senate. All of those things had a variety of different challenges, but being an environmentalist in this country is a whole other challenge in and of itself. And while we are seeing really unprecedented attacks on the bedrock environmental laws and standards that I think most Americans have come to take for granted. We are also seeing an unprecedented level of civic engagement and kind of an outpouring of people saying, what can I do? I need to do something. I want to make my voice heard. So it's actually a very, very exciting time to be engaged in our democracy.
When it comes to leadership then, and when you look at the younger generation, especially in the Korean American community, do you see some hope and do you want to be able to try to grow more of those leaders and up-and-coming leaders within our community?
I hope that just by the sheer luck, perhaps, of being in this job and being able to represent these issues on a broader public forum, that I can provide a glimpse of the new normal of lots of people from lots of different walks of life being able to hold their hands up and say, I'm in, right? I'm going to do what it takes to fight for clean air. I'm going to do what it takes to fight for my democracy. And I think that too often, many people in this country don't necessarily think they can make a difference, or don't see themselves necessarily represented in the people that are making a difference. And so I think more and more there is not only the need for that, which I think is completely obvious, but the opportunity for people to really feel like, yeah, that's possible.
Do one thing. Doesn't matter what you choose, but one thing to give back to this country that we love. One thing to pay it forward to our children and their children. And one thing to honor the sacrifices of our parents and grandparents. And collectively, these one things make up the most essential part of our country, our democracy, and the ability for one person, one dream, one hope, and one contribution to add up to fully remake the American dream. Thank you very much.